Right. Okay, this is my diversity field experience, and I chose to learn about school experiences of people of different cultures. So a little background on before my experience. I was a para at Faribault High School before I started school. And there we have a pretty high diverse population, I would say, maybe compared to other rural schools in our area. We have a very high Somalian population and Latino population. I also worked or have worked the last couple summers at the SEAM program at Faribault Middle School, and this is for kids 6th through 8th grade who need extra help in the summer. It's not exactly summer school, but it is extra help to pretty much get them caught up so that they aren't behind. So it's just some extra practice mostly. So I have worked with children who are newcomers to the country before, but I still have had a lot of questions about what being a newcomer is like to the U.S. and what they think of our educational system. A little bit of research I did before starting my project. In 2012, 47% of children younger than 5 belong to a racial or ethnic minority group. I thought that was really interesting that the percentage is that high, even 5 years ago. Some local statistics: more than 8% of Minnesota residents are immigrants, and that's actually lower. We're like 22nd in the United States for diversity or residents of being immigrants, but it has grown a lot in Minnesota. The immigrant population has tripled in Minnesota since 1990 and continues to rise. And by country of origin, the 5 largest groups of foreign-born residents in Minnesota come from Mexico, India, Laos, Somalia, and Vietnam. All right, I took this from the Minnesota Compass webpage, and I thought it just really tied into why we're doing this project and the importance behind it. So here's some quotes from their website. Knowing more about those who have immigrated to our state and country can help us better understand the impact on our schools and communities as a whole. Staying informed of immigration trends helps us build social ties and better respond to shifting needs and opportunities. All right, so my experience consisted of a couple interviews, one from Egypt, one from Gambia, and one from Mexico. I also put my questions into a survey and shared that with the Faribault Community Facebook page, just because I know there are a lot of people in the Faribault community from different countries who have immigrated here, and I thought it would be interesting to hear what they had to say as well. So what I found from my interviews and survey was I asked some questions that asked what motivated you in school, and I found that grades were a big one, along with parents wanting to make their parents proud or contribute to their family. Another was sports participation. I had a few who were in sports such as football and had to have good grades to participate. And then some said that they did want to go to college, and so knowing that they needed good grades to qualify or to be accepted into the college they wanted to go to motivated them to do well in school. As far as what didn't motivate them, I found out that the cost of higher education was a big factor. I had a few people respond saying that knowing that they could not apply for loans or be granted any kind of student aid just because they weren't a full-fledged citizen yet, or not knowing how or to get any kind of help was kind of a factor in not motivating them to go on after high school. And then others said that amounts of homework were very overwhelming, and I'll touch on that a little bit more in the next slide. So what, if anything, made school difficult for you? Some said that being the only one of their culture or background was very difficult. I had one who was Muslim and went to a very white Catholic school. It wasn't a private school, but a lot of the people at the school were Catholic and were white, and so it was hard for him to share his cultural experiences with his friends just because they did not share the same as him. And so like I said, it was hard for him to talk about his experiences. Other people said it was really hard for them to get help from their parents. Like I said in the last slide, homework was a big factor. A lot of these parents might not read English very well or might not have been educated, and so it's very hard to ask for help as a student to your parents when they don't know or if they're not very well educated. And then I had one say that it took him a very long time to learn the English language, especially reading, and he still struggles with reading today. I asked what could have made your school experience better, and all three of them said at one point that they wish they would have had teachers or cultural liaisons back then who were more willing to help or find resources to get them help. One said he wishes that he would have branched out of his comfort zone more. And then one said that he wished that there is more knowledge or acceptance of his culture. Just when in thoughts of like school programming, whether that be choir concerts or breaks with, spring break, or how things might pan out for everybody instead of just thinking about the majority. And then I asked for their reasons of coming to the U.S., and they all said either job opportunities for their parents or educational opportunities for them as students. I had most of them were saying the education system in the U.S. is a lot better than the countries they came from, so their parents wanted them to come here and get their education, and then of course their parents would find better jobs too. And I asked how their experience was when learning or with learning the English language, and interestingly, two of them, the ones from Africa, said that they learned English at the Catholic schools that they went to when they were in Africa. And even though they weren't Catholic, their parents made them go to the Catholic school because those were the good schools over in Africa. I had others say that their parents really pushed them to learn English, and then others saying that they didn't really learn English until after they came to the U.S. and they were in EL programs at school. So overall, I really enjoyed talking to these people and just hearing the answers and reading the answers from my surveys as well. It really shed some light onto some questions I didn't have answered before. And I thought about how I could bring this forward into a classroom environment, or how I could carry this forward. One thing I thought of is that I need to create a common culture within our classroom, and with not only being accepting, but asking questions of my students and wanting to be interested in them and having them being interested in each other. I also want to be able to offer support to all my students. I want to be able to notice if they are struggling, or notice even if they're not my student, maybe if they're struggling, and reach out to other resources or teachers I know that could help them, and just offer and create opportunities to learn about each other, whether that be in just my classroom or in other classrooms. I think it's really important that we learn and teach empathy in the classroom, and I feel like that's basically what the main point of this project and was. So I really enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed it too.